All right, Islam, we live, Morris Ken.
Islam family, I'm Dr. Marvin LVP out of the Texas Consulate, giving all praise to the great God Allah and highest honors to his prophet. And honor to everything that's Moorish. And I will begin with our Moorish American, our Cometian Moorish American prayer. Ya Allah ebnu heru meku neteru. Ya Allah ebheru. Ya Allah ma'at heru. Ya Allah hutep heru. Ya Allah heru. Ya Allah ma'at herkuti. Ya Allah awjet dejuti. Ya Allah pertem sitek pertem haru. Ya Allah bamaduti. El hedges reapt huali. Amen. Alias, alias, alias. In transliteration, O Allah, the Father of the universe. O Allah, the Father of love. O Allah, the Spirit of truth. O Allah, the Spirit of peace. O Allah, the Spirit of freedom. O Allah, the Spirit of justice. O Allah, you are my protector. O Allah, you are my guide. O Allah, you are my salvation by night and by day. O Allah, through your holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Holy Yasa, Holy Yasa, Holy Yasa. Islam Moors. You have the floor. Can't hear you more.
It's Islam. Islam. You got the divine constitution more.
Oh, I do,
If
sir.
not, if not, I got you.
Oh, no, I have it. I have it. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
We can hear
I'll
you loud
continue.
and clear.
Gratitude. Y'all continue. The divine constitution, salvation, our God, unity. The divine constitution of Moorish America. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the chairman of Moorish America are empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the grand body of Moorish America. The assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the citizens of Moorish America. The bylaws. Act 2. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed by and practiced by all citizens of Moorish America. No citizen is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4. All citizens must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all citizens must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are a part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. No organization of Moorish America is to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all citizens must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are a part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to the slaves, was given to slaves um, by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Drew Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All citizens must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a partial of all uplifting acts of Moorish America. Moorish Americans must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of Moorish America. And then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Prophet Noble Drew Ali, peace and blessings be upon him, founding father and framer of the divine constitution and bylaws of Moorish America. Islam or
Islam, Islam, Islam. I am Dr. Diane Carter Bay, my ancient comedian high name being Dr. Dinger Ani Akurta Bay. First, let me rise and give praises to our great God Allah. I give honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali. I give honors to Act 1. And I give honors to Council General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, for opening us up according to law and for reading our bylaws in our Constitution. I will be reading our chapter of the week, chapter 27, coming from our Holy Quran. And it reads, Yehoshua receives the mystic name and number and passed the first brotherhood test. The master took down from the wall a scroll on which was written down the number and the name of every attribute, character, and he said, the circle is the symbol of the perfect man, and the 7 is the number of the perfect man. The logos is the perfect word, that which creates, that which destroys, and that which saves. This Hebrew master is the logos of the Holy One, the circle of the human race, the 7 of the time. And in the record book, the scribe wrote down the logos, circle 7, and thus was Yehoshua known. The master said, the logos will give heed to what I say. No man can enter into light till he has found himself. Go forth and search till you have found your soul, and then return. The guide led Yehoshua to a room in which the light was faint and mellow, like the light of early dawn. The chamber walls were marked with mystic signs, with hieroglyphs and sacred texts. And in the chamber, Yehoshua found himself alone, where he remained for many days. He read the sacred texts, thought out the meaning of the hieroglyphs, and sought the import of the master's charge to find himself. A revelation came. He got acquainted with his soul. He found himself. Then he was not alone. One night he slept, and at midnight hour, a door that he had not observed was opened, and a priest in somber garb came in and said, my brother, pardon me for coming in at this unseemly hour, but I have come to save your life. You are the victim of a cruel plot. The priests of Heliopolis are jealous of your fame, and they have said that you will never leave these gloomy crypts alive. The higher priests do not go forth to teach the world, and you are doomed to temple servitude. Now, if you would be free, you must deceive these priests, must tell them you are here to stay for life, and then When you have gained all that you wish to gain, I will return, and by a secret way will lead you forth that you may go in peace. And Yehoshua said, My brother man, will you come here to teach deceit? Am I within these holy walls to learn the wiles of vile hypocrisy? Nay, man, my father scorns deceit, and I am here to do his will. Deceive these priests, not while the sun shines. What I have said, I have said. I will be true to them, to Allah, and to myself. And then the tempter left, and Yehoshua was again alone. But in a little time, a white-robed priest appeared and said, Well done, the Logos has prevailed. This is the trial chamber of hypocrisy. And then he led the way, and Yehoshua stood before the judgment seat, and all the brothers stood. The Hierophant came forth and laid hands on Yehoshua's head, and placed within his hand a scroll on which was written just one word, sincerity, and not a word was said. The guide again appeared and led the way, and in the spacious room, replete with everything a student craved, was Yehoshua bade to rest and wait. Islam, Islam, Islam. I will now turn it back over to our host, our National Assistant Grand Sheikh. Islam.
All right. Gratitude. Islam, Islam, Islam. Islam, Moorish America. But let us rise upon the seventh and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere. And therefore, honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal, Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything that our holy prophet brought to make us a nation. Islam, Sister Curta Bay.
Islam, pardon, Chef. My mic was open.
Okay, gratitude, Islam. And yeah, we want to welcome our Moorish kin to another grand session when it comes to dealing with our ears research sultanate, and that is Egyptian Adeptus Research Sultanate session. And we have a grand drawing this morning, and we are looking forward to, everything it is our Moorish kin have to offer when it comes to their homework. So gratitude to the Moors and everything it is that we will receive when it comes to the wisdom that will be brought forth. And we have a grand measure most definitely brought forth. And so at this time, what we want to do is open up the floor to our Moorish kin so that we can see, what was brought on the manifest, and we can learn, from our Moorish kin. Praise be to Allah, Islamism. So at this time, anyone who would like to come forth, we can come forth as the order presumes, so to speak. Islam.
Islam?
Islam, Grand National Secretary of the State. Gratitude, Islamism.
Praise Allah. Islam Moorish kin, first follow and arise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our ears class, our Egyptian Adeptus Research Sultanate class this morning, giving honor to our Florida consulate for providing the forum, and also to all of our Moorish kin online, giving a special honor to our host, our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of Moorish America, Dr. Shedu Amenti El Mohedjed Shepsuel, Islam. All right, Moorish kin, this was indeed a grand drawing. I want to give you much honor, Dr. Shahid, for the class last week. Very much on point. I'm still going through that, because there were so many keys and resources that you provided to us again. And also gratitude for the SEBAYT. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see my screen, Moorish Ken?
Yes.
Oh, gratitude.
There you go. I just put it up there.
Praise the Lord. All right. Dealing with our assignment today. I basically we had 2 degrees. First one used the PDF attached as a guide for your transliteration of 7 acts of the creation cycle as instructed below. Observe number 2, observe the celestial and terrestrial pages of the book of creation and contemplate upon the meaning of 7 acts in the cycle of creation that correspond with the acts of the Neteru of your choice. Give your exegesis of 7 acts of occurrence, parentheses, upon the planes of protoplast, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherubim. And what I did, Moorish Ken, I used, in addition to what our National Assistant Grand Sheikh sent as the attachment, I used the Egyptian divinities, the All Who Are the One by Mustafa Gondola, and also 3rd edition Egyptian Cosmology, the Animated Universe, also by Mustafa Gondola, to assist in my assignment. So as far as protoplast is concerned, and thank you, Dr. Shahid, for the definition and reference to being first formed, because that caused me to do the research on that word again, not just limiting it to a cell. So for protoplast, first formed, to mold. Prototype, an original model upon which something is patterned. And I'm coming from the Egyptian Cosmology, page 5, and Egyptian Divinities, pages 21 and 55. For protoplast, I had atom, Ra or ray, divine energy during the creation state, passing from an unconscious state to a conscious state, the oneness of all to be complete. It's the starting point also of a cycle. And man is patterned after Allah. He's a spirit and a part of the great God Allah. Also, in reference to the characteristics of the atom, Ra, or ray, in connection with protoplast, I am many of names and many of forms, and my being exists in every netter, which we know netter is dealing with the creator. Salutation to he who comes into being by himself. By the time of the Old Kingdom, the baboon was closely associated with the God of wisdom, science, and measurement. So that's why I have a picture of the baboon as well, because we're dealing with the attributes of the creator. As Tho's sacred animal, the baboon was often shown directing scribes in their task. As Tho was a god of the moon, his baboons were often shown wearing the crescent moon on their head, as shown in the statue here. Baboons carried out Thoth's duties as the god of measurement when they were portrayed at the spout of water clocks and on the scales which weighed the heart of the deceased in the judgment of the dead. Other name associated with the baboon was the bull. And we're familiar with the characteristics of the bull as well. When I looked at earth, dealing with terrestrial, relating to the earth, earthbound, Asiatic, the slowest plane. Khat, Khat, which is symbolic of something that is corruptible or subject to decay. Coming from the Egyptian cosmology, page 113. And we know, per our prophet Noble Drew Ali, it's not in flesh to think or bones to reason. We are Asiatics and Muslims, and also a part of this divine and national movement. So the prophet brought us the highest degrees that there is. Now, when we look at what Khat is defined as, the physical body was a person's Khat, a term that implied inherent decay. Khat, or Ka, the body. Ancient Egyptians believed the physical form itself was a part of the human soul and called this element Khat, or Ka. It was the vessel inhabited by the rest of the soul on earth. This is part of the reason mummification became so important to ancient Egyptians. Preserving the physical body was actually preserving an important part of the soul. Now, we know, coming from chapter 1, we were created to be the Lord of the plane of soul and also the Lord of the plane of things made manifest. But we also recognize the fact that when we deal with this body of flesh, it has a beginning, will have an end. Same with the soul. It has a beginning and will have an end. The essence of us is spirit, which is on an infinite level, has no beginning, has no end. After a person has died, offerings would still be made to the soul at their physical body because it was believed the rest of their soul could supernaturally absorb the benefits and nutrients from the offerings. The body was a link to the essence of the person who had once inhabited it, a concept which is seen in many other interpretations of the soul. Again, we recognize the fact here in Moorish America, it's not in flesh to think or bones to reason. When we look at the plant, coming from Egyptian Divinities, page 127, I selected Nefertum, representing perpetual renewed creation. And, you know, with plants or trees and things of that nature, they go through the birth, growth, and, you know, the leaves fall, the changing of the seasons. And then when springtime comes, you are seeing the regrowth again. This is why I selected Nefertum. The first part of the name Nefer deals with anew or renewed, and Tum, or Tem, deals with complete or completion. Born anew each morning from the lily, rebirth, ability to mature. I looked at that as far as spiritual maturity. When we go through these special cycle ages, because our prophet lets us know that we have to tarry many ages until all of our lessons are learned. So as we learn our lessons through these ages in reference to the cycle of birth, death, reincarnation, etc., then we should be becoming spiritually mature or receive higher and higher elevation for every higher realm that we go. Also, perfume of the lily is spiritualized essence. And that again took me back to chapter 1, where the prophet speaks about the perfumes and the odors in reference to that plane of soul. From the pyramid texts about 4,400 years ago, this is a quote: to rise like Nefer, turn from the lily, and to come forth on the horizon every day. The lily represents whiteness and purity. Now, that was another paradigm shift. We know that according to our Quran questionnaire, will you define the word white? White means purity. Purity means God, and God means the ruler of the land, which in that ties us back into chapter 1. When we look at the beast, Egyptian Divinities, that's the book that I came from, page 88. I selected Anubis, or Anpu, the divine principle of right sense of direction. And that is key, because when you're walking about in a state of unconsciousness, then you're subject to go without a rudder, be directionless, if you will. So the dog represents spiritual guidance, guiding the soul of the deceased through the region of Duat, and protector from unclean spirits. Now, Duat is dealing with the realm of the dead, where the souls travel after leaving the earth plane. Dog is also symbolic of loyalty and faithfulness. Now, this is my metaphysical definition on this: being true to the higher state within ourselves. You know, and this is why the prophet tells us that we have got to purify or clean that dirty mindset so that our higher self can reign. The dog also, to me, was symbolic of divine love. The building of the temple of perfected man, allowing the actions of the soul to unfold so we may solve the fix. And there's often a bond when you have a particular animal that you selected as a dog. There's a bond and connection there, which is definitely about love. So that's why I chose that attribute, and also the Hierophant within ourselves, guiding and protecting on our journey of divinity. That's also in our prayer. When I looked at man, coming from Egyptian divinities, page 132, I selected a Sar, the divine in human form. Again, coming out of chapter 1, this represents the cyclical aspect of nature. We know dealing with that circle. Physical creation and its cycles of becoming and going. So again, unfolding into the God state, the consciousness of who you are as God. If you notice in the picture, a Sar carries a shepherd's crook, and that's symbolic of the shepherd of mankind. The flail to separate the wheat from the chaff, or discernment. Now, we have to separate the things of value and on an infinite level from the illusions in life. We also recognize the fact that Maya represents the illusions in life. And in order to be able to, we know evil is not requisite to man. So we have got to conquer the lower aspects of our carnal nature in order to be the divine within the God state. Also, as far as a definition for Sar, the scepter of supremacy, the divine power to rule. And when we have mastered or conquered our lower self, then this is us as well, being able to demonstrate the Lord of the plane of soul and also the plane of things made manifest. Also, it was synonymous with 7, Sabah. And this is what our National Assistant Grand Sheik spoke about last night. That's also the same word for lion. The green face is symbolic of resurrection and renewal. So you see the same principle or characteristic of the creator in reference to the dealing with man and his renewal until he masters and conquers all of his lessons. 7 is the perfect number. When we look at the logo circle 7, that is also symbolic of the higher self. Angel, celestial, sky and space, coming from the Egyptian divinities on page 178, and also our Moorish Holy Quran, chapter 15, ayat 31, which was part of the attachment. Yehoshua and Barada together, they read the sacred books. Tho, dealing with intellectual powers, the trinity of Husia, Heka. Hu, dealing with authoritative utterance. Sia, the mind or consciousness, understanding and perception. Heka, ability to transform by using the right words, active transformation. And we recognize the fact, again, why it is key for us to purify our thoughts in order for us to be able to tap into our God powers. The angels fell not. Their will was never strong, and so they held the ethers of their planes in harmony with the law. An angel is a thought, and I also saw the similarities between thought and Tho of Allah manifested in human flesh. Our duty as angels is to carry messages to the four corners of the earth to all nations. That's part of our divine assignment. And the last one, dealing with cherubim, also celestial, sky and space. The cherubim also, will was never strong and held the ethers of their planes in harmony with Allah. Prophet Noble Drew Ali is an angel of Allah who was sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah. Our prophet also is divinely prepared in this new era of time. It is the great work of masterminds to restore the heritage of man, to bring him back to his estate that he had lost, where he again will live upon the ethers of his native plane. And this is where I also brought forth out of the attachment that our National Assistant Grand Sheik had. And in the ark, the magic wand, for they contain all prophecy, lies waiting for your hands. And we know that the hand is symbolic of the mind. It is the key to all the hidden meanings of the present, future, and past. The cherubim have guarded well for every soul this treasure box, and whosoever will may enter in and find his own. So that again is coming from the meaning of silence and the wisdom of a blind man. And when we receive the right guidance and the right direction of which our prophet has brought to us, then we are able to go within and do just that. And the prophet also let us know that he removed all excuses. So we are indeed responsible for what we know. So gratitude, Moore, for calling me forth. Much peace and love to all of my Moorish kin.
In Islam, gratitude, Grand National Secretary of the State. That's a powerful measure you brought on the manifest. And in everything that you brought forth, being in this era in time now where we are, because we know the ancient Kemites, they wove their belief, of, we can say, the reality of the netter and the activity of the Neteru. They wove into that, the actual activities that had taken place, such as how you demonstrated a few minutes ago. And being that we are able to look at it that way, we can see the holistic approach that was demonstrated, because it wasn't anything that they looked at as too less to be observed. And so being that they was able to observe those things make sense as to how it is they were able to reach certain heights in science and manifesting different things just by studying nature. And if we are to look at that in this new era in time, how, Grand National Secretary of the State, do you think it is that our people can come into a clear conception, just as you gave, the drawing with much clarity on these particular measures? How do you think that they can come into a clear conception of what our ancestors was able to demonstrate then and what we can demonstrate now by utilizing the same observations? Islam of what we call Medu Netta. Islam.
From my understanding, first of all, you have to receive the proper truth. You have to, and this is why I am so honored to have Prophet Noble Drew Ali in my life, because prior to that, I was in a state of unconsciousness dealing with years of training here in the West, being raised up, and the lack of proper education as far as these European schools. So from my perspective, I would have to say, in humbly, and humble is the key, sincerity is the key. We know that that is the first degree, but we have to be able to come with our cups not full. When you come from a level of arrogance or vanity or king ambition or what have you, that's a sturdy foe to fight. And that often leaves our perception skewed because it's dealing with the selfish self or what have you. So we have got to first learn what higher self and lower self is. And usually the mindset will be able to discern higher self and lower self looking at something outside of the self or another outside of the self. When they start to make these lessons applicable to the self, to go inward and start to realize that, wait a minute, I have a higher self. I have an especial lower self. So I've got to get my house in order. And when you constantly are studying from the Quran, when we deal with the Book of Ali, the Exhuming of a Nation, dealing with the 4 sacred schools of thought, etc., when you're constantly taking these things in, dealing with the tools in the workshop of the mind, how repetition is key, and constantly reviewing and searching and seeking honestly, then revelations will come. And this is what our class yesterday evening was about. Allah can speak to man through man. Allah can speak to you through revelation. Allah can also speak to you from behind a veil and remove that special veil. But Allah is the one that determines whether the veil is going to be removed or not. But if the sincerity is there, if the earnestness is there to deal with making yourself in a position to be approved by Allah, that means that when you see that you have negative and dirty thoughts, do what you can to get rid of it. And that growth and development will lead to higher and higher elevations, and also the unfoldment of coming into your God state. Often it's termed of in 3 degrees. Belief, that which man thinks perhaps is true. Yeah, okay, well, maybe I'll check it out. Faith, that which man knows is truth. And here in Moorish America, if man would know, he must himself be what he knows. And then fruition is the last step on the master's carpet, where he and Allah are one. So when you are able to, as the prophet brought to us, the vision, first of all, you can't die. So you either going to get the lessons here, or you're going to get the lessons on the soul plane. It's better if you go ahead and make these lessons applicable to the self, because I don't think anyone of some intelligence would deliberately try to invoke a wrath. We've seen what the wrath was in reference to our people as a collective for the past 400 or 500 some years. And we know that during this special time, not everyone was demonstrating evil or in their lower self. But the thing is, when one turns their back on the Creator, whether consciously or unconsciously, then according to universal law, you're going to have lessons and tests come to you so that you can learn. It's a lot easier when you have the blueprint and the pattern that Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought, so that you can say, oh, okay, I'm here, and the journey begins with the first step. So this is how we need to demonstrate that. And in studying, because Prophet also told us to go back in mind to our forefathers' state of consciousness. And when we are able to start tracing ourselves back, and you also start to learn how to hear your own voice within, to acknowledge your own higher self within. Oftentimes, you can term it as a still small voice or the hierophant within. Don't do that. Don't go that way. And when you're younger, you tend to slough it off, not pay any attention, because you want to do what your way is. But as you get bashed around and buffetings and things of that nature, then you learn how to be able to hear that silent voice within. And when you recognize that part of the divinity of us is when you are still enough to be able to receive revelations from Allah, and also your own higher self within, then you recognize that you are the question and the answer. And whatever question you put out there, you will receive the answer. So gratitude, more again. Hope that assisted. That's my perception of that. Islam.
Islamism, gratitude, Grand National Secretary of State. Very powerful measure. Praise be to Allah. And that's what I'm talking about. Living manifestation. Islamism without the schism. Islam. All right. Is there any other more that have their homework?
Islam.
Islam, Sister Curta Bay. Gratitude, Goddess and Queen.
Islam, family. Honors has already been given. I would just like to say, Brother Shaheed, I don't know if I got this right or not, but I did my best to work on it. Okay, and you said in our instructions, you said use the PDF attached as a guide for your transliteration of 7 acts of the creation cycle as instructed below. And then it says, observe the celestial and terrestrial pages of Book of Creation and contemplate upon the meaning of 7 acts in the cycle of creation that corresponds with the acts of the Neteru of your choice. Then you say, give your exegesis of 7 acts of occurrence. And then you had in parentheses, upon the plane of protoplasm, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and cherubim. And so what I did was because as I was listening to you last night when you was giving your class, I thought you meant for us to just go and just observe creation. Because I thought I heard you say something about, maybe if I observe the ant and talk about him, give my own exegesis about the ant, whatever I choose in creation, and then relate it to the Neteru of my choice. So what I did was I looked at creation, and the first thing I wanted to talk about when I was observing in creation, I was observing the moon. When I look at the moon, and I was asking myself, I say what Neteru corresponds with the moon, and so I came up with the Neteru that corresponds with the moon would be Kansu, and his name means traveler, and this may be related to be related to him being called a traveler because of how the moon um, travels across the sky at night. And then it says that Kansu was instrumental in the creation of new life and in all living creatures. And at Thebes, he formed part of a family triad, the Theban triad, with Mut, M-U-T, as his mother, and Amun, his father. Khonsu, the ancient Egyptian god, was depicted either as a falcon wearing the moon disk on his head. And then also, I looked at Brother Shaheed, some of the attachments that you had sent out, and the one that you sent out a couple of weeks ago called the comparison. Where, and I think it was named the Library of Princeton University. Well, and I looked at that too because that was dealing with Harapalo and his interpretations of some of the animals and stuff. So I got a lot of my information from him and from that. And the next thing I picked out, it was the ostrich feather, and I said the Neteru that represents the ostrich feather would be Ma'at. Ma'at is the one that represents the ostrich feather, and I said she is both the goddess, the personification of truth, cosmic balance, and justice. According to Harapalo, the man rendering justice to all was represented by the ostrich feather because that bird, unlike others, has all its feathers equal. And that was something that I did not know that all his feathers were equal. But and then when I thought about the ostrich feather too, I thought about my prophet. He wore a feather in his turban, and but I couldn't find the information on to tell me what kind of feather that he had in his turban. But I remember him having I think it was like three feathers in there, but I couldn't find the information on which one they was, if they was the feather of the ostrich, what kind of feather they was, and maybe you can help me enlighten me a little bit on that, Brother Shaheed, later on in the class. And then the next animal in creation that I looked at that I wanted to observe, that I wanted to give my measure on was the beetle. And of course, I talked about the beetle before, the scarab beetle, but the beetle, it was the symbol of creation by single power of generations of paternity, the world and man. And the scarab beetle, he was a symbol. He was symbolic of Khepri, the Egyptian sun deity who represents creation and rebirth. Because we know the scarab beetle, he takes the mud, the dung, and he shapes it and molds it into a spear. So I associated the beetle with Khepri, because he was the deity that represents creation and the rebirth of the family of the whole world. And then in your attachment that you sent out, um, you was talking about in one of the ayahs, it was talking about Yehoshua being in that room, and it talked about the colors, the blue and the gold. And I looked up I wanted to talk about the color blue being in creation, and how the color blue represents this color represents sapphire, and this color is preserved to us in that it's of sapphire, and it's also spur sire, SPIR or SPHIR, and then it's formed by the root, come from the root word spar or spire, signifying to write, to speak, celebrate, praise, a scribe writing, and then the book. So I associated that uh, um, these various significations indicate the divine voice, the written or spoken word, the wisdom of God contained in the scepter of the Hebrew of the Bible. And also, the sapphire is the color of the Egyptian Amun, Amon, or Amun, Amun. That color blue represents that. And also, I thought about the color blue in the Piscine records in Revelation. It talks about when the new city comes down. It talks about how the second foundation of that city is said to be sapphire. But we know all of that is symbolic, and symbolic of what's going on inside of us, symbolic of our chakras and things of that nature. And that's what I had, and I didn't know. I stopped right there because, as usual, sometimes I don't get a clear understanding of what I'm supposed to be doing. So I didn't know if I was on the right track, or if I did it right or whatnot. So I say I brought this forth, and you could help me from here to let me know where I missed it at, and what I got wrong and what I missed. Islam?
Islamism, gratitude, Grand National Secretary of the State of South Carolina, Sister Dendra Nee Curta Bay. We give honors to you, and you did grand, and that's the draw, and that's what we're getting at. These lessons are so much more vast than people may know. That's why we can't just take the symbols and Kemet and try to limit them to a letter, because once you do that, you're taken away from the grand scheme, of things in relation to dealing with, what is really the essence of that special expression, from a metaphysical standpoint. That's ancient Kemet all day. I want to
Islam.
ask you this question, Sister Dendra,
Mhm.
as well. When you now have a knowledge as you do in depth about these teachings, because the European would have you think our people was just pagans worshiping many gods and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
Now that you have the knowledge that you have based upon these things as we are constantly unfolding, how do you see the Neteru? Do you see them, as just a bunch of gods and demigods, along with the Neter, do you see holistic approach, that our ancestors was demonstrating, that is what we call the grand idea that precludes the monotheism, Islam?
Islam, and yes, sir. I see that as they. It's much more than what I can even comprehend, because our ancestors, and you have done a wonderful job in showing us how they have went in and twisted and misrepresented what our ancestors had said, but most definitely just looking at the Netaru's and everything, with the understanding that I have of them, give me a greater respect of them, you know, especially even with the cobra and the snake and the scarab beetle and the vultures, all of those things that they would you know, use as definitions or whatever, as they when they was talking, all of those things make me have a greater respect and a greater understanding, because the European would have us to think that our ancestors worshiped many gods, and we know that there's no truth in that. It's only one God, and but I have a great respect of this what I'm learning of the Netaru's now, because I see them, and I'm anxious to as the great God Allah continue to uh, uh, bring to my remembrance, and as I continue to unfold, I'm looking forward to receiving more revelations about our Netaru's and stuff, because what I'm getting right now, it's just a scratch. I'm just scratching the top. I'm just scratching the surface, because I know there's much more wisdom for me to learn as we continue on this journey with you. And gratitude, God, man, for all that you do, all the research. I tell you, all this research we got. Hey, you can't help but go deeper into this thing, and so I'm just excited. So that's what I think about. That's my appreciation for what I've learned, and how I look at the Netaru's now. Islam. I hope I answered your question right.
Islamism, sis, that was a grand drawing. Praise be to Allah. And Islamism without the schism, yeah, it don't get no plainer than that. And that's why we are here to, we got a lot of work to do, when it come down to reaching out to our people, because most of our people have been misled, to believe, like you say, anything else, that had been said by Rome. And they have no knowledge, when it comes to dealing with that which, come forth from our ancestry, through our lineage, and what our teachers had to teach. And so it's indeed a grand measure, to come on the manifest and demonstrate. I want to share something too. And that feather that the prophet had is a peacock feather as well, and
Okay.
the
Uh,
universal, yeah,
oh,
Islam,
okay.
but
Gratitude.
it's Islam, but it's also universally connected, to the ostrich feather as well, when we go into the essence of it. So it symbolized the same thing that was symbolized in ancient Kemet. As you stated, it deals with Ma'at. It was really symbolic to the purity of his heart, you see, which represented his consciousness,
Islam.
based upon truth and right, you see.
Okay.
So that in and of itself says a lot, and we can see that this wasn't something that was just made up. This measure, even when we deal with everything it is that the prophet donned, himself in, so to speak, when it comes to his attire. We see that his attire in and of itself comes straight from our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
Unbeknownst to many of our people who tried to make him a mason, Shriner, and so forth and so on.
Right.
Giving credit to the European, and not recognizing their own history. And I often show this. I'm gonna share this screen real quick to give the example of exactly what we're talking about here. So, and we always show, our people this particular picture, and it's always good to use the hammer repetition. You know, you can see here those who go through the lineage of our ancestors, whom the Damari derived from, your Puttites, who are known in this time as the Libyans. If you notice, they have the feather in their headdress, which is very similar to the feather of the prophet. I always like to say, this brother here remind me of the prophet, right here in stone, and then there's another expression, Islam. That's a powerful demonstration. But when you look at the whole of this was a common practice. Look at what our holy prophet said this right here. And this was said to be, we'll say, narrated by Sister Whitehead L. She stated the holy prophet said, "This is not no social organization. It is a divine and national movement." He said, "By you being born here, don't make you a citizen. Look, what I have on now, this was handed to me by the government. It represents the royal prince." So we know good and well that when we look at what the prophet has on here, that didn't come from the United States government. You see, his attire lets you know of his travel abroad. You see, so it had to come from the East in his journey there. You see, because we again know you ain't never seen no United States government uniform that looked like this.
That's right.
Attire that looked like this. So that in of itself should tell the people what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
See? And now, when you go further into it, if you look here, you see a brother here, and notice one has on the sash and the similar attire that the prophet had. But right here, this is definitely spot on. And all of this is coming from the Cushites, the Mero Cushites.
Mm-hmm.
Notice they have the feather in their head,
Islam,
the body. So we can see that this predates Masonry by thousands of years. You see? Now, mostly now, you will have what they call, the pagri, which is this headdress that the prophet has on. You have the sherwani, or the kurta, and this particular demonstration here, when you go into the essence of it now, it has been preserved by the Indus Kushite Valley civilization. But if you know anything about them, they come from the Mero Kushite civilization, their teachings and everything. And so we give honors to them for preserving, these garbs, you see? And in fact, a lot of the Moors weren't even drawing off of the garbs, until recently when the chairman brought them back to the manifest. Then all of a sudden you see Moors coming out. Before that, they was trying to be suit and ties and bow ties and everything else. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to point that out, Goddess and Queen. Islam.
Gratitude. Islam. Gratitude.
Islamism without the schism. And I also have a measure too to point out here, dealing with the lesson itself and just going into the language. And this is one of the greatest measures we have, and y'all remember this from our early stages of coming into this, dealing with this language. And in this particular document, the Thalath Egyptian hieroglyphs and classical works, the whole PDF is showing you that prior to the 19th century, so to speak, that there was no teaching, about alphabets being hieroglyphics and vice versa. These teachings were always taught to be metaphorical. And these are some of the works that was taught. This was the common teaching, not only dealing with Chaeremon and Horapollo, but these were the original views of those who were even in Greece and all that during that time. It says nature. It's an idea that was held into the decipherment of this writing system, as they call it, right? More than 2 millennia. Thus, around the 4th centuries of Herodotus says, where Herodotus stay in Egypt, we read Diodorus Siculus' work, where it says, nevertheless, we must talk about this kind of writing, which Egyptians call sacred or hieroglyphs. It says, indeed, in their writing, this is not the arrangement of syllables. You see, it says, which conveys the idea to express, but a metaphorical meaning linked to objects that are copied and transposition etched into memory by long exercising. Now this go right back to our Moorish Holy Quran, where Yehoshua went into that special room and he contemplated, he meditated, he thought upon the meanings. But they're telling you here that, you know, this writing, and for people that don't know, the word hieroglyph itself by definition means something that cannot be deciphered, undecipherable. There was also use of the word hieroglyph in reference to some other texts, even before they so-called, quote unquote, had called themselves deciphering it. And hieroglyph always had to do with something that could not be deciphered. So how can you say that a hieroglyph is Medu that has been deciphered? You see, just by the definition of hieroglyph now, you know, and you can go there, and I give honors to our elder Walter Williams, you know, for putting this measure out there in his works as well. In the American Heritage Dictionary, they have a measure dealing with the word hieroglyphs. And I'm going to show you this right here, because these things are all helpful every time we have a key. You know, let's see here. And all of these things make things plain to our people so that they can have a clear conception. You know, and it said a picture of someone using hieroglyphic writing in this particular area here. I'm trying to find American Heritage Dictionary definition, where they give you the actual definition of the word and what it really means, and not the water. Now here it is right here. And it had another measure in here because they change them up. It says something that suggests a hieroglyph. And see, that's the thing too. These people are always revising, you know, these particular words to make them fit their narrative. Give me 1 second here. For some reason, this here always gives us a better, let's see. Give me 1 second here. Here you go. This particular thing gives us a Google gives us a better better search. At least I like it better because it's a little more vast. And I like to always go back to the root of something, family. Because if we go back to the root, meaning the oldest demonstration, then a lot of time you get the gist of what was being said before they tried to water it down. You know. So that's a whole nother measure right here. Let me see if this is the one here. They put hieratic up there. I didn't ask y'all for hieratic. I said hieroglyphics. Let's do it this way. Just put hieroglyphs up there. Because I want our Moorish kid to really see this definition. It's a basic definition. Where is it? They may even have it here. Goodness gracious. This thing here jumps all over the place when I'm trying to find something. I got too many windows open. And I had it up here before. It might be this one right here. When I was looking it up. This is it right here. They got one here too in the American Collins Dictionary as well. Okay, right here when it was saying a picture or symbol representing a word or symbol or sound used by ancient Egyptians or others instead of alphabetical letters. These are some of the definitions they are given here. Having the nature of hieroglyphs, written in hieroglyphs, hard to read or hard to understand, right? But then it goes into the aspect of writing hard to decipher, you know, and if you go into certain measures, it says completely undecipherable or indecipherable, especially when you're dealing with what they call Ptolemaic hieroglyphs that came into existence under the time of Ptolemy. Because when Ptolemy himself came forth with his hieroglyphic breakdown that they had, it got even more complicated. Because what he did is that he began to take symbols and add certain things in there. If you add 7,000 symbols in there on 700 or 600 symbols, it makes it even worse. But my point being, again, is that they, in this time, and this document was actually in what they would like to call full Greek as well. They got a couple of different texts. This ain't the only one that talk about this. But they were speaking also of Tacitus that wrote at the beginning of the 2nd century AD. And it said the first ones, the Egyptians used animal figures to represent ideas, right? Which is sensus mentis. And these monuments, the oldest of human history, still can be seen engraved on stone. So these are ideas that have been placed in stone. From the same work, it says, I think that this is what the Egyptian wise men have understood. To refer to things with wisdom, they don't use drawn letters, right? Which develop themselves in discourse and clauses, which represent sounds and spoken words. They draw images, each one being the picture of a distinct thing. Each engraved sign in science and wisdom, a real thing understood in a single time. See, this is what was demonstrated by a Grand National Secretary of the State and yourself, Sister Dendra. You know, it says, I want to explain the theological mode of Egyptians. Indeed, they imitate the universal nature and the divine creation when they produce symbolical copies of mystical and intellectual things, hidden and invisible. In the same way, nature expressed in a symbolical manner the invisible reasons by apparent forms. You see, as for the countless symbolical figures called hieroglyphs, it is the ancient authority of the original wisdom which made them knowable. You see? And so, again, they are confirming that these things were symbolic. Here's another measure that was pointed out in this work. It says the Egyptian hieroglyphs as a priest's prerogative. That's another thing. They didn't even teach this to everybody, so to speak. They started them off with the language hieratic and taught them, you know, in things like the Demotic and so forth and so on. And then they introduced to them, you know, the science or the metaphysics of the language. Most of the time, this was actually taught from the father to son, or taught within the family, so to speak, you know, when they dealt with it. You know, they didn't just throw this arsenal of information out there for everybody, because one can actually tap into the workings of creation in regards to dealing with these measures. It says another glitch about the Egyptian hieroglyphs can be seen in with other authors' works. The idea that hieroglyphs would be a prerogative for a small portion of the population, namely the priests, jealously keeping their secrets. It says, thus, Apuleius talks about rituals in books keeping the magical mysteries of the priests from the uninitiated persons. It says, thereafter having celebrated and established, formed the ritual of temple opening, and having executed the morning sacrifice, the priest pulls from a hiding place at the bottom of the sanctuary some books, where were drawn unknown characters, literis ignorabilis is what they call it. It says on the first ones, animal figures, figures modi animalium of every kind, were the abridged expression of liturgical formulas. And on the others, knobby rounded lines in the shape of a wheel, retracting like vines and tendrils, and shielded the lecture of the text from the curiosity of the non-initiated. And so they're saying that they had particular texts, that they brought forth, and they demonstrated to those who were basically of the priestly class, because the priest will be more responsible with that special information. And then you would have that demonstration pass. This is why we know that there could be no decipherment, because of the way that they demonstrated during that ancient time, according to the records. So it says, in the same way, Diodorus Siculus explains the Egyptians have two particular kinds of writing. The first one called common, learned by everybody, and the other one called sacred, only known by the priests and taught to them from father to son among secret things. And it says, after, he adds, thus, in according a detailed attention to symbolic meanings present in every object, and they're exercising their mind by long practice and memorizing, they read in a row what is written. Again, that's going back, to the same measure dealing with Yehoshua. And though they used the term, this demonstration was secret, it was really sacred. You see, it says, through these lines, we understand that only a long practice and intense intellectual training allow knowledge of the key for reading hieroglyphs. So no alphabet ain't gonna give you this knowledge. Consequently, it seems obvious that the memorizing in Diodorus' text was reserved for an elite, given the time required for the realization of this learning process. You know what I mean? And so, here's another mention. It says, as a general rule, it may be said that none of the classical authors knew what they were writing about as far as the hieroglyphs were concerned. It says, although most of them may be more or less unconsciously tried to cover their ignorance with the pompous cloak of learned philosophical terminology. It says, perhaps this statement in some cases exaggerated. We have seen that many ancient scholars have had access to testimony from Egyptians who mastered the hieroglyphic writing, or at least knew the true meaning of several signs. But it is true that most of these authors didn't have any peculiar knowledge about the functioning of this writing system. It says, and thus it is possible, thanks to some rhetorical methods, this ignorance was turned into a declared criticism of the Egyptian writing system. De facto classical authors pointed out the defects of the Egyptian graphic system compared to their own scriptural practice. More, they imputed their ignorance of hieroglyphs, meaning the Egyptian priests who jealously guarded their secrets of these signs. It says, if the arcane of the hieroglyphic writing cannot be grasped, it is both because of their enigmatic essence and because the priests who refused to surrender their knowledge that they guarded for selfish reasons. And what they were saying, they were critiquing one, saying that these things were held back, as a secret, so to speak. The author in this particular work was critiquing that, And it was basically coming down to the fact that, either they couldn't grasp it because of the enigmatic essence, or it had to be a reason that was dealing with them holding it back for selfish reasons, and that wasn't the case. It's just in most cases, certain things you wouldn't understand if you wasn't a part of that culture. That's just like even us here in the West, family. Nobody could really come in and deal with the lingo that our people use until they came amongst us, so to speak, and began to pick up on the slang, and now they got it all in the news, selling it all over the place, where they selling things by using, the linguistics now, it's a thing to be cool when you're trying to promote something, use some of that old NBC slang, and, you can promote and sell anything you want to sell to anybody, but ones had to come amongst our people in order to learn, what these different phrases or statements that we made meant. And that was right here speaking the English language they understand. One had to understand that we said when something was bad in the NBC state, that meant good. They didn't know that, from the outside, because according to them, in proper English, bad means something bad. And we can go into many different areas. And so if this is the case with a language they knew, then think about a language they have no knowledge of, going over there trying to learn. So when we get into this knowledge and we understand that everything has to do with meditation and contemplation, then we have a grander draw. Okay, we finna open up again so we can hear from our family, but there's some more points I want to make since I'm here. Now, this is coming from the works of Thomas Young, the opponent, and I was coming out of this last night, of Champollion. They was supposed to be peers, but, they had some opposition going on too, because they was in competition with who gonna do it first, who gonna translate these glyphs first, so to speak. Now, if you look at this measure, this is actually, some of these drawings come from the works, most of them really come from the works of Horapollo, because Champollion was using the works of Horapollo. Horapollo interpreted these things metaphysically. E. Wallace Budge even quotes Horapollo in his little dictionary. You see, so they knew that these things were supposed to be metaphysical, but they were the ones who took these things and tried to adapt them and adopt the alphabet. So when you look here, for example, this is a symbol of the flag, and they say God, powerful. This flag don't represent a letter A. It represents, an entity. It represents a principle. You see what I'm saying? Like right here, when you see, and these are what they would normally try to call determinatives. We call them, really indicators of certain measures. But if they would have just dealt with the symbols based upon this, they would have been a little closer to the right way. Because again, this is not a letter A, B, or C. This represents, again, a particular function. It says judge here, right? And then you have all these symbols here, and this represents a goddess. So these are people, places, and things that are being demonstrated here. You see? It ain't got nothing to do with these things being an alphabet. And so where they say, well, this signifies gods in plural. Because we know this is a symbol of nature. No problem with that. Then we can see also their Greek influence, because we know Agatha Demon is a so-called Greek expression. But really, this is called the Bet Hedet, or what they call the sun disk. The Aten disk in most cases with the wings on it. So we can see how they try to put certain things in there, to take you off the count. Now, normally, they would try to tell you these are alphabets. But this is the expression, again, of what is supposed to be a personage or a principle. Same thing here with, Ptah, Atah. Now, normally, they'll tell you, well, this represents M and R in the alphabets, as they would try to put it. But really, this represent here a symbol as it represents an entity again. Amun, same thing, an entity. See, so these are not alphabets over here. They represent principles and things, and this is their identification with it. But we take it a little further when we go into the measure. So like I said, a lot of their stuff they were mixing and matching. I'm gonna show you a prime of what I was just saying. And we're gonna get to, I think, our brother Marvin Edwards Bay, you know, who will have something to bring on the manifest as soon as I show you this particular drawing here. I'm gonna give you a prime example. See here where it says eternity, and it shows the serpent here. Now it's something to be pointed out when we go into that special drawing right there. If you look at that and what they are trying to show, let me pull it up right here. I just had it. Let's see, is it over here? Okay, yeah, I think I know what it is. It's probably here. Come on now. Don't you be going slow on me. There you go, right there. I wanted to show you this here. Now, this is from Hor Apollo's works. Now, this is before their so-called decipherment now. Now, it says how the universe, you know, and it says, and you can see in this is actually written in, you know, Hypocrisy, which they like to call Greek. He was the last priest, you know, that demonstrated in this particular area with the Medu. It says, when they would represent the universe, they delineate a serpent, be speckled with variegated scales. It says, devouring its own tail. By the scales, it says, imitating the stars in the universe, right? So what they're trying to point out is, if you look at the body, you know, these would have been the stars symbolic to the universe. And if you ever seen a symbol, you know, where they demonstrated in a lot of these theosophical societies, the serpent catching its tail, that particular demonstration actually is symbolic to the universe, as they would say. In fact, if we were to go right here, I have an expression of that right here. Let me pull this open real quick so we can show it to our Moorish kin. And this going back to India. And we was talking about dealing with the origins of the flag right here. Look down here. You see how the serpent is catching its tail, which is symbolic to the circle in creation. This is symbolic to the universe. You see, and you see the star here, and they have the scimitar actually beneath the star in this particular expression, but it's known as the Umani Padme Hum. And this is all symbolic to man being a microcosm. And once one raises and forges that scimitar from the scimitar sacrum, which is at the base of the spine, one lift that demonstration up, then it's sheathed above the star. You see? So this is a powerful demonstration in and of itself. But nevertheless, we know this concept is the kafesh, which also deals with the leg of the ox that is in the northern hemisphere of the heavens. And you're actually dealing with what we call, you know, true north. And this is the same area where Venus, you know, sits, and that Big Dipper is rotating around. And this is actually the same star that was used by the Moors to navigate, the North Star. You see, by that particular star, they could make their way back home and everything. But yet and still, this is a symbol of the universe. And this particular symbol here actually represents the symbol that come forth as a representation of the center of those 7, you know, stars that are made up as that Big Dipper. This same demonstration is what is also known as what they call the expression of the mouth of God, the gateway of heaven, you know, the 7 Elohim, you know, and all that is in the same particular teaching here, you see? So this is how we go, just dealing with signs and symbols being for conscious minds and men and women of understanding. This is metaphysical. So yeah, like they spoke of the scales imitating the the intimating part in self, the stars in the universe. It says the animal is also extremely heavy. It says is the earth, and extremely slippery like water. Moreover, it said it every year puts off its old age with its skin. So it's talking about when the serpent sheds its skin, this is symbolic to a cyclic process of the year. It says, as in the universe, the annual period affects a corresponding change and becomes renovated. And the making of use of its own body for food implies that all things whatsoever that are generated by divine providence in the world undergo a corruption into it again. You see, so there's a process of purification that takes place, but there is a corruption that takes place, by one being in a particular state, of just dealing with the body. So those things that are corrupt, one has to be purified. You see, and this is the only way you can raise that kundalini, that serpent fire, or forge a scimitar, and so forth and so on, and sheath it, right here above the neck. So this is a powerful demonstration. So they also pointed out the god Atumu, Atumu, right? And this is Autumn, is actually being identified with the serpent with its tail in its mouth as well. So Autumn goes back to Atom, the universe again, creation cycle. That's why everything moves in a halaxial motion, in a circular like pattern. All this has to do with renewal. This is done at the cellular level. We can also call it what we call not only regeneration, but even when we deal with cellular respiration as the microcosm of the macrocosm. Same thing. And all of this is just a metaphysical interpretation in regards to dealing with the serpent. You see? And so they have a couple of those measures in Ho'opono, but I just wanted to show you how they were demonstrating. And again, you see then why the serpent is symbolic to eternity, because it represents a cycle. See? Same thing when we deal with the quadrants and everything they represent cycles. You see? So that's powerful. With the Ankh right here on the serpent, you see the Ankh represents life. So if you're dealing with this as a symbol of eternity, then this beside the Ankh represents a cycle of eternal life. You see? Immortal. So therefore you're immortal. Now we don't need no alphabets to tell us this is letter A and all that in order for me to give you that metaphysical expression. But one has to contemplate, one has to meditate upon this demonstration. Same thing dealing with this scepter of power here. You know what I mean? Or they use this symbol as a symbol of joy, as a representation of really the mirror or the pyramid, pointing upwards. When we are in our highest state of consciousness, this is where we have joy. See what I'm saying? You don't need an alphabet to see that. Stability. This represents the jet pillar. They got two of them over here, and it says established when you have two, and stability represents one. When they say mighty here and you see this bull here, this is actually speaking in reference to the strength that's represented by the bull, the vitality, the force. That's why this is represented. Also make you think about the ox, dealing with strength that comes into the axe. And we know the scimitar itself comes from the rim of the axe. Well, guess what? It's also called the leg of the bull. So when it talk about in some translation, Moses, smit the Egyptian with the leg of an ox. Well, he's saying he put the scimitar to work. But there's a lot of symbolism in that. They also say he lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. The wilderness really represent, when one is not knowledgeable of themselves. You are in a wilderness. And you can't even hear a voice of the great God Allah cry out to you in the wilderness. So because you don't know self. But when you come into a knowledge of self, now You lift up the serpent in the wilderness. That's Kundalini energy. That's enlightenment. You see, again, you forging that scimitar of consciousness. And so this is just powerful, just going through these special measures. I just wanted to touch on some of them things metaphysically so our family can see, the deepness of this wisdom that we have when we talk about the metaphysics, as opposed to trying to put these things in a box and make them alphabets. So I encourage our Moorish kin to study, all of these things that we have given to our Moorish kin to study. So let me stop sharing this screen here, and we're gonna see what our beloved brother Marvin Evans Bey have to bring forth. Islam.
Islam family, can you hear me? Well,
Islamism, yes, sir. We hear you loud and clear. Gratitude, grand man.
Gratitude. Yes, I am Dr. Marvin Evans Bey, Consul General of the Texas Consulate, rising giving all praise to the great God Allah. Highest honors to his prophet, our prophet, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Allah Sharif Abdullah. Give honors to our theocratic government, our Moorish American government. Give honors to our Act 1. I give high honors to all of our officials. Give high honor to this class, our ears class, our Egyptian Adaptive Research Sultanate class. And I give honors to the Florida Consulate. I mean, you, Dr. Shahid Amintia Mohed Sheptuel, for hosting our ears class. As well, I give honors to everything that's Moorish, our flag, our seal, our emblem, our divine constitution, our Holy Quran, our Book of Ali, our 101, 102s, our exhuming of a nation. All of our divine revelations I give honor. Give honor to the forerunner, Dr. Marcus Mosaic Gabriel, as well as I give honor to our ancestors, whom shoulders we stand upon. We are the return of the ancient ones. And give honor to all those that gave their measures before me, and all that will give their measures after me. And honors to our Grand National Secretary of the State. She always give very powerful measures. You know what I mean? Very informative, very instructive. And I might even suggest her, but she got so many responsibilities already of having a ears 2 class. But yeah, honors to her. And honors to Dr. Diane Carter Bey, Dr. Dendra Ani Okurta Bey, because I was really coming from where she was coming from mostly. You know what I mean? Thinking about the lesson being said, the book of creation, which is everything around us. You know what I mean? Everything. Because this is where we are today, and coming from, our beginning, first man, first form, you know what I mean? And going through all of the stages of our growth that our ancestors, you know what I mean, when they uplifted, I say uplifted, when they actually civilized the world everywhere they went. You know what I mean? Our ancestors were travelers, and everywhere they went, they uplifted humanity. You know what I mean? And so, as I'm not filibustering, but I'm going to just bring my share screen. Okay. Okay, this is my screen. Now, what I want to do is, okay, I want to go here. Okay, this is, and I don't have a whole lot, but I was striving, you know what I mean? I did more time meditating and contemplating, what it is that we had to do, and so this is our instructions. Islamism, Muslims, our homework will consist of using this over to the left PDF attached as a guide for your transliteration of 7 acts of the creation cycle as instructed below. 2. Observe these celestial and terrestrial pages of Book of Creation and contemplate upon the meaning of 7 acts in the cycle of creation that correspond with the acts of the Neteru of your choice. Give your exegesis of 7 acts of occurrence upon the planes of protoplasm, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna hide this. Okay, here we go. Of man, of angel, and of cherubim. And like I was saying, I spent a lot of time, really trying to go within, you know what I mean, and really trying to find myself as if Yoshi was instructed to do, because this is an ongoing process. It's not a stop and go type of thing. It's a 24-hour, 25/7 demonstration. You know what I mean? So we're always continually studying the self, and I am. You know what I mean? And fighting that foe, that lower self. Because it's always going to be there. So, but it was put there so that I can stay on point. You know what I mean? Because if I don't, then I will be consumed by the abyss, so to speak. But so, and as I'm gonna go on further down, and you put this there just from contemplation, I'm sure. The Egyptian Adaptive Research Sultanate, we are swift angels, here to raise the scimitar of consciousness in defense of the heart and minds of our people. And this is what we are doing today. And I want to say gratitude, National Assistant Grand Sheik, for all that you do in reaching our people. When you speak on the heart, this is the nearest place we can meet the great God. Here, the silent voice of the great God that speaks within. Here, the Egyptian Adaptive Research, Arts, the living manifestation of sacred science of the Moors. Earth, the earthbound plane of existence. Hear with your divine ears and master the sacred sciences and arts of the earth. And so I continue. The Egyptian Adept SEBAYT. This is the, I'm just going down this PDF. Wisdom teachings of, or holy and divine instructions concerning the Metu of Al-Hajjat Shets, say Reaptuali. Signs and symbols are for conscious minds and men of understanding. As I reflect on that, we know that signs and symbols are not within itself what we're looking for. It's pointing to what it is we are looking for. And I'll go down. And this was one of the eyes that you spoke on. This is coming out of our questionnaire, the ADEPT questionnaire. 39, can man speak? Can Allah speak to man? The question, yes, is the answer. 40, how many ways does Allah speak to man? And I added this one in, 2 ways. And 41, what is one way Allah speaks to man? Answer, in a still small voice he speaks, and he who hears is still. I mean, this is directives, this is instructions. So we know that we must be still in order to hear. And 42, how do we look at the image of Allah who speaks within? Answer, by looking into the face of man. And we being man, and everyone on this planet is being man. Of course, we look at the gender, female, but man, we know that man is a thinker. Man is that true self that Allah brought on to manifest. He is the one that is to be the Lord of the manifest. He is the one to be the Lord of the soul, and he is the image and the likeness of Allah. And this is me going into the self and seeing everything, you know what I mean, and looking into between the lines of everything that I look at, you know what I mean? And because I said I am continually studying myself and then continually trying to elevate my consciousness, which is Allah. Allah is consciousness. Allah is truth. He is thought. You know, all of these things come back to the creator, to the source, which is where we are going, where I am striving to go. 43. What is the other way Allah speaks to man? By the voice of man, not an oracle or an idol. You know, so every time we hear, you know, a swift angel speaks, we're listening, we're hearing the voice of Allah. Because Allah is spirit. So he created man so that he can manifest himself on this manifest through man. You know what I mean? And so I'll continue. We go to this one, this other part of our Holy Quran. Yehoshua explains to Caspar the meaning of silence and the wisdom of Allah and man. Let's see if I can move this over. Okay. 20. Fear not to lift the sacred board. The tables of the law are in the ark, concealed. And when I looked at this first ayat, you know what I mean? I thought about fear. We have to fear not. We know that fear is false evidence appearing real. You know, and I thought about that lift. To lift, that is to elevate. As we elevate, then we can elevate our brothers and sisters. And that sacred board. I saw that sacred board as this sacred garden. We each have a sacred garden. You know what I mean? I just thought I had a little humor between the ears. You know what I mean? That between our class, and I looked at it, this is our class that we are dealing with here. Our ears class. And the law, and like the law is in the ark, and the ark being our Moorish American government. You know what I mean? And when it says that the tables of the law are in the ark concealed, I saw that as when the prophet brought his teaching to us. You know what I mean? He said so much, and so much that he didn't say, but was still there. And that was what I saw it would be handed down to us later. You know what I mean? When we take these lessons, take these teachings, when we purify our hearts and mind, when we obey the instructions that the prophet brought, you know what I mean? It will enable us to understand what was being handed down to us later. He said he is going to take his good morals in an incline. You know what I mean? And this is that incline, that Moorish American government. You know what I mean? This is us coming together in our consciousness, coming together. You know what I mean? Aiding and assisting. The prophet said, study the self. Okay, well, first I'll go to 21. Take them and read them well, for they contain all the precepts that man will ever need. You know, you think about this. You know what I mean? And this is studying self. You know, when we read, we study self. And when you ask what to study next, we say, study the self. You know, that is to say, all of these things, you know, as we read these lessons, I mean, they already contain everything that we need, all of the concepts, all of the precepts that man will ever know. And this is how we do this, by continuing to study the self. You know what I mean? Understanding the importance of having our own government will enable us to grasp. You know what I mean? We know that the hand is indicative of the mind. You know what I mean? So as we come into the understanding, we can grasp, you know what I mean, the importance of what it is to have our own government. I mean, to truly, and we do. But to come into the understanding of that is what it has been. And then we can understand what has been handed down to me. 22. And in the ark, the magic wand, for they contain all prophecy, lies waiting for your hands. It is the key to all the hidden meanings of the present, the future, and the past. And this is how I see what we're doing, and we are a nation of angels. I mean, this is what I see we are doing today. We are studying, you know what I mean, in this ears class. And I know everyone that's out there that's listening within the sound of my voice are studying. You know what I mean? We're all trying to answer that question, why are we here? What is our assignment? And we are getting our assignments on a day-to-day basis, you know what I mean, through the instructions of the prophet in our most American government, and as we go within. I mean, because that's what each individual duty is, to go within, you know what I mean, to study that creation that the great God brought on and manifest through the Elohim. And we was there with them all the time, you know. And so this is so-called my exegesis on that particular chapter and those ayats. And I'll go to the next one that he gave us, which is chapter 57, Moore's Holy Quran, chapter 57, 5 to 9. Yehoshua receives the mystic name and number and passed the first brotherhood test. And we all have to do this, brothers and sisters. We all got to pass this test. You know what I mean? All of this, you know what I mean? This is such a beautiful demonstration, you know what I mean, to be here on the manifest in this day and time. This is a new era in time. And studying these lessons, studying these teachings, you know what I mean, continually uplifting ourselves, continually elevating our consciousness, because we don't stop. You know what I mean? Each time I come on the manifest, rising, I give all praise to the great God Allah. I'm continually rising. And as I read Ayat 5, and in the record book, the scribe wrote down Logos Circle 7, and thus Yehoshua was known. And when I look at this, the Hierophant, and as we are instructed, the Hierophant resides within us. You know what I mean? That's why we go within, so we can get that true understanding for ourselves. You know, we talk about that record book. That's Allah's book of registry of remembrance. And we all have that more. We can trace ourselves back to where our ancestors were. We can trace ourselves back to being one with our great God Allah, which is what we're about. You know what I mean? And we talk about the scribe writing down, wrote down, you know, and I saw this as our higher self. You know what I mean? The Hierophant within us. You know what I mean? We write down that which, you know what I mean, we experience. And as we observe that book of creation, you know, we are that. As I put myself into these teachings, into the lessons. And so I look at that as myself, as my higher self, writing down, you know what I mean, my understanding of what is being brought to me, what is being handed down to me. And the Logos Circle 7, and thus Yehoshua was known. Ayat 6, the Master said, the Logos will give heed to what I say. No man can enter into the light till he has purified his heart and mind, found himself. And we are instructed by the prophet, we must purify our hearts and minds. We have to learn how to love instead of hate. I mean, all these things, everything that the prophet brought us, I mean, and this is just on one plane, you know what I mean? This is on at one level, you know, and we have so many levels that we must, you know what I mean, conquer. that we must ascend to, so that we can be what we know to be as we study ourselves, to be one with the law. And so I'll continue. 7, ayat 7, the guide led Yehoshua to a room in which the light was faint and mellow, like the light of early dawn. And I looked at this, and I say, the guide was leading Yehoshua into the room. I see this as the soul. You know what I mean? We use the actions of the soul, our thinking, our reasoning, our willing, our understanding, and our remembrance. All these things lead us and guide us along the way. This is what the Elohim gave to us. You know what I mean? As we read in our chapter 1, you know, that why did Elohim give man a soul? You know what I'm saying? So that he may function on the plane of soul. So we may take this reasoning, this understanding, you know what I mean? You know, all of these things, all of these tools we are used here, and we are to be one with Allah. All of this is to help us reunite, to go back to the source. And this is my understanding. You know, and that firmament is that room. You know what I mean? There are many rooms in our Father's house. You know, and many mansions in our Father's house. You know what I mean? So these are the different firmaments. This is where we will find ourselves, like Yehoshua, studying ourselves, going into a higher understanding of who we are and why we are here and what is our assignment. You know what I mean? And as we reflect on this this room, the light was faint and mellow, like the light of early dawn. And I just saw this, and the first thing came to my mind, to my head, it was murky ethers. You know what I mean? It's like we can't see clearly. We can see, but it's like truth and falsehood, so to speak. You know what I mean? Truth is there, and so is falsehood. Pick one. But we know we don't do this haphazardly. This is the study. You know what I mean? And we are studying high science. And we got high science tools to enable us to see that light. You know what I mean? That the prophet has brought us, that Allah is giving us. We go down to 8. The chamber walls were marked with mystic signs, with hieroglyphs, as we are speaking on today, and sacred texts. And in the chamber of Yehoshua found himself alone, where he remained for many days. And I just put many tests, because each day is a completion. And as we continue to study the self, and as we continue to make the right choices, you know what I mean, and not fall victim to that lower self. You know what I mean? To really, really be one with the great God Allah, to really, really know what we're talking about, to know what is being brought to us, to know what our mission is. You know what I mean? And as we look at on those walls, we see the hieroglyphs. We talked about the hieroglyphs, and we're studying the alphabets. We're studying the hieroglyphs, and we're studying what has happened to our teachings, what has happened through the manipulations of the Europeans. I don't mean to, be on that too much, but we have to take under consideration what happened. That's why so many of our people want to say that the hieroglyphs have been deciphered. You know what I mean? That the European has deciphered. And I mean, he only been here. We already know that he hasn't been on here as long. He haven't been able to understand. He doesn't have the spirit to understand what is being taught in the hieroglyphs. As our ancestors brought high measures, they put deep thought, the scribes that did this, that wrote, even in our alphabets, even in our language. You know what I mean? They didn't do anything haphazardly. Everything was for a reason, for a high reason. And so I won't tarry there. And I just added, he read the sacred text, thought out the meanings of the hieroglyphs, and sought the import of the master's charge to find himself, and was still. Because we have to be still. We have to meditate. They ain't just going to come just like that. The understanding ain't going to come just like that. But after we study ourselves and we become more familiar with ourselves, then we can access that which is within us more readily. And 10, and like I said, I just added this on. A revelation came. He got acquainted with his soul. He found himself. Then he was not alone. And more, we know that we are never alone. Allah is always with us. The prophet is always with us. So I go down to the next one. Moore's Holy Quran, chapter 29, ayat 1 to 4. Yehoshua passes the third brotherhood test, faith. The Logos waited 7 days. When we think of the 7 days, this 7 is a very powerful number. We know it's the number of completion, number of perfection. You know what I mean? And so that's how I look at that. And then was taken to the Hall of Fame. As we travel, we come into a lot of different demonstrations. Some that are very tempting, what have you. Something that has so much to offer. But we have to be the one, to discern what is good and what is falsehood. And so he was taken to the Hall of Fame, a chamber, which is that room within, rich in furnishings and lighted up with gold and silver lamps. The colors of its ceilings, decorations, furnishings, and walls were blue and gold. And we know that even the colors are significant. Blue like the cosmos, gold like that treasures that lies within us. Its shelves were filled with books of masterminds. The paintings and the statues were the works of the highest art. And Yehoshua was entranced with all the elegance and these manifests of thought. He read the sacred books and sought the meaning of the symbols of the hieroglyphs and the hieroglyphs as we continue to study these hieroglyphs. Chapter 32:1. Yehoshua takes the 6th degree. And as this is suggesting more, as it is instructing that as we go through these different tests, as we ascend to these different levels of understanding, we pass a test just as the prophet and as Yehoshua did. Coming to a higher understanding, a higher degree. Yehoshua passes the 6th degree and passed the 6th ADEPT chamber of the eastern sages. In all the land there was no place more grandly furnished than the beauty parlors of the temple of the sun. And we are taught of the temple of the sun. They call it Heliopolis. And everything that's without us is within us. So we continue to study. And we go to chapter 33, ayat 1. The ADEPT chamber of the dead, the mysteries of Egypt. The senior course of study now was opened up, and Yehoshua entered and became a pupil of the Hierophant. And yes, Moses, we definitely have to become a pupil of the Hierophant. We have to pay close attention because the Hierophant is the one that reveals that which is hidden, that which is concealed, that which is veiled. And so as we continue to study, all these things will open up to us. 20, chapter 57, religion. He has endowed thee with reason to maintain thy dominion. We have reason so that we will stay on course. on this journey. He hath fitted thee with language to improve thy society, and exalted thy mind with powers of meditation, to contemplate and adore his imitable perfections. Or show the Quran 57, religion. As we know, we continue to study these teachings that the Prophet brought us. Continue to study. I mean, there's so much more. And I know I'm just going to quickly go through these because I tell you, just one ayat, you know what I mean? We can get so much out of it when we go so much into us. You know what I mean? Because within us, that's where Allah is, as well as outside. You know what I mean? And we can meet with him. But that's the closest place that we can meet Allah, is within. Once you hold the Quran, chapter 58, ayat 1, hold instruction from the Prophet. Know thyself as we continue to study thyself. Weak and ignorant as thou art, O man, humble as thou oughtest to be. O child of dust, wouldst thou raise thy thoughts to infinite wisdom? Wouldst thou see omnipotence displayed before thee? Contemplate thine frame. Man, that's powerful. You know, as we contemplate thine frame, you know what I mean, as we study ourselves, you know what I mean, our higher self and lower self, more as we have a treasure within us, you know what I mean, that the great God has given us. We need to pay close attention. We need to continue to study. And as we study ourselves, we also to study or observe those around us, because that is Allah speaking to us as well. As we looking into the face of man, we're looking into the face of Allah. Contemplate thy frame. There's nothing that exists outside of the great God. You know what I mean? So it's just such a beautiful thing, you know. And so, you know, and I'm trying to go into some of the lessons because, like I said, we can really appreciate everything that the Prophet brought us. I was trying to get to, okay, I was taking this part of the lessons where we are to observe the terrestrial pages of the Book of Creation. You know what I mean? And like I say, I kind of went the direction where Diane Carter Bay went, Dr. Carter Bay went, you know, just to look outside, you know what I mean? You know, and as I was outside, you know, I noticed a mockingbird, you know, was singing. I say it was communicating in a nearby tree. You know what I mean? Last night, and as I rolled and I was taking out the trash, you know, I stopped, and as I was passing by him, the bird singing, as I stopped, it stopped, and that caused me to think. You know what I mean? To contemplate. You know what I mean? What is being, you know what I mean? What is the message that is being delivered to me now? That this is creation. This is, you know, part of that creation that we were to reflect on. You know, and I thought about it, and you know, it just, you know, brought so many thoughts within me that here is creation, and we are actually communicating. And it was kind of like at night, you know, so I didn't really see it, but I heard it. But then I heard when I stopped, it stopped, and as I continued to walk, it began to continue to sing. You know what I mean? And I thought this was a beautiful thing. So just contemplating creation itself, and you know, and I know I need to do a whole lot of more studying of creation. You know what I mean? And reflect it back. You know what I mean? And to speak on that bull, which we know that it is one of the Nether rules. You know what I mean? It really is reflected of the first letter, that A. You know what I mean? Which in Arabic is Aleph. You know. But that bull, you know what I mean? When you look at the bull, you know, I was looking at a movie the other day and saw this bull so powerful. It represents power, you know what I mean? Strength, endurance, and as I reflect on that, and just there's so many things that we have that we can observe and that we can elevate our consciousness on. And I know that's what I'm saying. I got caught up on the earlier demonstration that I didn't get into a deeper uh, presenting or a deeper exegesis of what was being asked. But this is where I'm at. This is what I brought, and hopefully someone got something out of it. Gratitude for allowing me to speak. Let me get back to the screen. And I say, gratitude, God, man, for allowing me to speak. Islam and peace.
And gratitude for the measure. Islam and peace, brother. And grand draw and praise be to Allah. Islamism. Well, all right. What we have here, we have our family asked the question, hieroglyphics versus petroglyphs. Can you speak on that, AGS Commission? Okay, yeah, we can actually touch that real quick. And I'm going to share my screen briefly so our family can get this draw in here. And actually, I'm trying to find it. There you go, right there. And they basically give you a basic definition here. Petroglyphs are images that are carved into rocks, while hieroglyphics are a complex Egyptian writing system that uses picture signs as writing characters. I beg to differ, because we already know that the hieroglyphs are not writing symbols, and they are very close to the petroglyphs. I'm going to show you how. Let me go down here. Prime example. And this is actually coming from archaeology.org, dealing with Egyptian rock art. And rock art is basically the same as that, that you can find in regards to dealing with what petroglyphs would later become, but these rock art expressions here, there's a measure that they put out here. And notice what it said. This is the thing too. I told our family that a lot of time when you see certain things that are drawn here, inscribed on the rock, it's easy to try to say that we carbon date, these particular symbols 50,000 years old if we can carve these things on a rock that is that old. Because by nature, if the rock is 50,000 years old and you carve something on it and you date it, of course, even if you put it there last week, it's going to be dated to 50,000 years old. So we have to be careful, with certain measures that are used, in order for people to produce these fake archaeological findings as well. But just dealing with the concept of these pre-dynastic inscriptions that are supposedly discovered in Egypt, right? Listen to what it says here. It says, Luxor, Egypt, inscriptions estimated to be up to 6,000 years old have been found spread over several rock panels located near the village of El Kawi by a team of researchers from Yale University and Egypt's Ministry of Antiquities. According to a report in Aram, the team members have been mapping road networks because Egyptian rock art is usually found in major crossroads. The images are said to represent formative stages of hieroglyphic script, which appeared in Upper Egypt, 3,250 years BC. It says, for example, John Coleman and Darnell of Yale University said that one panel is engraved with a bull's head on a short pole and two saddle bill storks standing back to back with a bald ibis above them. The images were placed from right to left in similar fashion as later Egyptian texts. Watch what it said. These symbols are not phonetic writing. Again, I'm going to say it again. These symbols are not phonetic writing. One more time. These symbols are not phonetic writing, but appear to provide the intellectual background for moving from depictions of the natural world to hieroglyphs that wrote sounds of the ancient Egyptian language, Darnell said. Now, we know that these so-called hieroglyphics that write signs come into existence during the Ptolemaic period. But here's some rock art that's said to be 6,000 years old, and they're telling you that these symbols are not phonetic writing. So this statement can actually carry over into any of the ancient writing from the Old, Middle, or even the New Kingdom per se. When it comes to the ancient Kemites, anything that was pre-Ptolemaic, we can actually use this special statement as a blanket statement in reference to that, because this was the original position. These symbols are not phonetic writing. The phonetic expressions only come into existence during the time of Ptolemy. You know, and what Champollion say, he translated. Now, I got to say this because I didn't show this last night, but I'm going to do it right now. And I want to show, before I go there, I want to show our family something too, just since we talking about this. For example, right, this particular tablet is dominated by ears. What is it that one can get out of this special demonstration here? Dominated by ears. Now, we see a few determinatives, as they call them up in here, but these are things and so forth and so on. Let us go to another one. This is another tablet from Kemet dealing with ears. You see, you can better apply the metaphysical breakdown that our brother Marvin Edwards brought, that I brought to the Moors not long ago, breaking down ears. You know, but here it is again. Ears in another tablet. You have another tablet here where the ears are being honored. They're paying reverence to the ear. You know, I can say, well, this has to do with paying homage to the ability to hear things that are spiritual. You know, right? That's what the goddess demonstrates, reverence. Here it is again. We can see here again, ears being demonstrated. I don't need an alphabet in order to demonstrate the metaphysics of the concept of the ears. You see, all I have to do is be able to identify with the ears and then go into the essence. We hear not those things that are carnal, but we hear those things that are spiritual. We have to be able to hear with the spiritual ear. You see? So having all of that in mind, family, you know, it's very key that we are able to look within. Listen to the silent voice that speaks within. And if we are able to do this, then we will be able to conquer a multitude, you know, of battles, so to speak, when it comes to the self. And that's the key of listening to the silent voice of God that speak within, you know, or what we call the language of God, i.e. metaneta. You see, this is just powerful in and of itself, family. If we can just understand that, then I mean, we can't go wrong. You see, we can't go wrong. How can we do it? Okay, and this is my last measure right here that I want to put out here. And then we're going to open up the floor to our brother. Let's see, I want to pull this up first, and then I'm going to share my screen. Let's see here. All right. Yeah, just right here. We'll do it this way. See if we can get anything out of this demonstration. Okay, there we go. Now let me share my screen. Okay. Here we go right here. All right. There we go. Okay, did you hear that? Notice what it's saying now. The Rosetta Stone is a stele composed of grand diorite inscribed with 3 versions of a decree issued in Memphis, Egypt in 196 BC. So what we have to comprehend is timelines. This is 196 years before the birth of Christ, as they would say, right? But when you go into the ancient symbols in the pictures, they existed 3,000 years before that, as we just read in the article I showed you. It just said that these things were not to be understood as having a phonetic value. The phonetic value is applied again later by a people who wasn't even a part of the ancient Egyptian culture. These are foreigners coming in, not having the knowledge, and they gonna yet give you a decipherment of a language that nobody supposedly had a knowledge of. And now check out how they did this now. Now, mind you, they invented their own drawing. They call it, Ptolemaic hieroglyphs, which is not to be confused with the ancient Egyptian expression of the Medu that they wrote. See, that's what people getting it twisted at. You see, now watch this. It says, during the Ptolemaic dynasty is when they demonstrated. See your little Ptolemy pharaoh? You can see all the Eurocentric facial expressions up in there. Look at that. It says, on the behalf of King Ptolemy. So this stone was written during the time of the Ptolemaic dynasty on the behalf of Ptolemy. So it was written for him. So of course his name would be in this particular demonstration. But it gets even deeper, family. It said the top and the middle text are ancient Egyptian using hieroglyphic and demotic scripts. Well, we already know demotic and hieroglyphs were already in existence, but that still didn't have nothing to do with this stone that had been created by foreigners. You see? So if this stone was created by foreigners, as we taught, it says in the demotic scripts, right, it said while the bottom is ancient Greek. This is what actually is a telltale giveaway. They're using the term ancient Greek, which we really know we talking about Hypocrisy and all this measure here, but they calling it Greek. Anything that has the term Greek on it, we know it's recent. It's more recent than it is ancient. Trust that. It says the decree has only minor differences between 3 versions, making the Rosetta Stone key to deciphering the Egyptian script. And that's Champollion. Well, Thomas Young, well, that's actually Champollion right there. Supposed to be sitting there now. That's what he's supposed to be doing. Doing his little decipherment. So now this is my other key, and this is what we close at right here. I want to show you what he used. Let's see. This is what he used. And after this right here will allow you to never be misled again, family. Hold up. There we go, right there. Well, we can click on that there, and that'll get us there. Here's another measure here. Let me stop right there. This is the other demonstration. This is the actual Phale obelisk right here that they took. It's telling you they took this particular obelisk from Kemet now. This is what lets you know how these people was remixing things. But if you look at this obelisk here, it has glyphs on it and cartouche. But this was not an ancient Egyptian obelisk. This was a Ptolemaic obelisk. And it was produced, you know, right around the same time, or a few years around that time, in regards to dealing with. Matter of fact, it says, you know, that Ptolemy had reigned between 144 and 132 BC. There was a whole Ptolemaic dynasty they had over here. Everybody was Ptolemy, you know. But this particular obelisk here that they have, family, was most definitely created during that same time period, you know. And so if you're looking at this particular obelisk, if they used the Rosetta Stone to decipher what was on it that was created by the Ptolemies, what does this have to do with deciphering the ancient symbols that are in ancient Kemet that existed 3,000 years before that? So you create your own dictionary, as you call it, a Rosetta Stone, and then you go and translate your own obelisk. Well, they didn't translate their own obelisk, but Champollion later on coming along did it. He translated a Ptolemaic obelisk with a Ptolemaic Rosetta Stone. How does that have anything to do with ancient Kemet when this was created way after ancient Kemet? See, that's it right there. It ain't no more that really need to be said after that right there. So we're going to let them keep fooling those who want to be fooled and misled. And we're going to keep demonstrating like the prophet said. Because the prophet told us to go within and contemplate thy frame. He told us to go listen to the silent voice that speak within. He told us to find the self. You see what I'm saying? What more is there that need to be known at this particular point? Again, when they did that, and for those who think it's a game, just on the way out, one to grow on, we're going to show you that this thing exists. I thought I was saying something. You know, when I was hollering Ptolemaic hieroglyph, I thought I had coined that phrase myself. Unbeknownst, when I went to doing deep research, we find out what Ptolemaic hieroglyphs is. It don't get no more than empirical data than this. The designation Ptolemaic hieroglyphs is used by the Egyptologists to refer to the script employed by the scribes of Egyptian temples after the conquest of Egypt by Alexander the Great until the end of the 2nd century AD, also called figurative or cryptographic hieroglyphs. It says they are not only synonymous with extreme complication, obscure puns, and strange puzzles, but also with intense challenge and excitement. The figurative nature misled earlier scholars into regarding the hieroglyphic script as purely symbolic. Now, one thing, they're talking about the figurative nature misled the early scholars. No, it didn't. We just want to know why you created Ptolemaic hieroglyphs. Why did you do this? And it's almost like, who gave you the authority? The same thing they did with the biblical text. You know, who gave you the authority to create the canon? And then come back and tell the Egyptian that they wrong. So in stopping here, I read from our brother Mustafa Gadala's measure. And this is like I said, in drawing, and we'll see if our brother Sincere Bay has something to say after we read this. This is very important that our family get it. And this is coming from the Egyptian hieroglyph metaphysical language. Here it is right here. The brother said the soundness of 3 rows of each Egyptian hieroglyphic image. He said the hieroglyphs of Horapollo is the only true hieroglyphic treatise preserved from classical antiquity, which I read some things, I showed you some things from Horapollo's work earlier. He says, the hieroglyphs of Horapollo is the only true hieroglyphic treatise preserved from classical antiquity. It consists of 2 books containing 70 chapters, and the other 119 dealing with one particular hieroglyph. The relationships between the sign and meaning were, according to Horapollo, always of allegorical nature, and it was always established by means of philosophical reasoning. Accordingly, each Egyptian hieroglyph has a short heading describing either the hieroglyph itself in simple terms, as for instance, the explanation of the picture of a falcon, or else stating the nature of the allegorical subject to be explained, such as how to signify eternity, or to signify the universe, which is what I went over earlier. Likewise, Clement of Alexandria in Stramata Book 5 and 4 tells us the 2 main roles of the literal and symbolic of the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and how the latter are later, so to speak, pardon self. It says symbolic contains 2 roles, being figurative and allegorical, which is mystical. And this is what was stated. The Egyptian hieroglyphic, of which one aspect is by the first elements, is literal and the other symbolic. Of the symbolic, one kind speaks literally by imitation, and another writes as if it were figuratively, and another is quite allegorical, using certain enigmas. You see, and it says, wishing to express the sun in writing, they would make a circle and a moon, a figure like the moon, like its proper shape. On the second row, subject or figurative, in Clement's Stramata Book 5 and 4, it continues, but in using the figurative style, by transposing and transferring, and by changing and transforming in many ways suits them, they draw characters. And it states, on the third row, subject, allegorical, Clement's Stramata Book 5 and 4, it continues, let the following stand as a specimen of the third species, the enigmatic. For the rest of the stars, on account of their oblique course, they have figured like bodies of serpents. But the sun like that of a beetle, because it makes a round figure of an ox dung, and it rolls it before its face, and they say that it is a creature that lives 6 months underground and the other division of the year above ground. And it admits its seed into a ball and brings forth that there is not a female beetle. That's a yearly cycle right there. 6 months above, 6 months beneath the ground. It says, Clement, like all classical writers of antiquities, asserted that the Egyptian hieroglyphics represented true images of divine law. The relationship between sign meaning there were always of allegorical nature, and it was always established by means of philosophical reasoning. To summarize the symbolic hieroglyphic writing, basically divided into 3 roles: the imitative, which is an object representing itself; figurative, an object stands for one of its qualities; and the allegorical, an object is linked through enigmatic conceptual process. So these are the ways that we have to observe these pictures: in the imitative, what they represent; figurative, what they stand for when it comes to their attributes and their qualities, you see, and then allegorical through, being able to go into those measures. Say, in fact, these categories describe relationship between visual forms and their meanings. A visual form may be mimetic, imitative, directly copying features of the object it represents. It may be associative, suggesting attributes which are not visually present, such as abstract properties incapable of literal depiction. And finally, it may be symbolic, meaningful, only when decoded according to conventions or systems of knowledge, which, though not inherently visual, are communicating through visual means. Each particular hieroglyph can be expounded from the obvious direct meaning of the sign, or by each specific employments in the various contexts. The rules govern the conception of allegories and symbols with their subtle distinctions between chirologic, tropological, and metaphorical and anaglyphical. It said enigmatic comparisons made such symbolic interpretations possible. Such hieroglyphic expoundings combine the totally religious, philosophic, scientific knowledge into the grand vision of a living cosmology. All ancient writers of antiquity agree. It says, such as Neoplatonist philosopher Lambycus, who wrote in his De Mysteries, the Egyptian hieroglyphic characters were not fortuitously or foolishly made, but with great ingenuity. After the example of nature and various Hebrew and Arabic authors concurred, they enshrine not histories or eulogies of kings, but the highest mysteries of divinity. So it says the triple layered aspect of the Egyptian hieroglyphic images are consistent with the general Egyptian thinking of the transcendentalists, and it states in conscious. It says correspondence between the consciousness and consciousness. It says, and so on goes any possible consciousness. So the world in the Egyptian text, there is no artificial distinction between sacred and mundane. This is the basis of the theory of correspondences, indeed, of all traditional symbolism, in which a true symbol is imbued with some power of its original. Contrary to the anthropological view of the origin of symbols and mere similarities, this doctrine regards them as primary realities whose actual relationship is perceived by man's higher intellect. There must be something identical in a picture and what it depicts, an identity of a latent structure. The ideogram is an accurate mold depicting reality. The traditional interpretation or communication purports to treat the material sign as the mere appearance and underlying reality, ideal reality. It says depiction is not synonymous with copy in nature. Ideogrammic writing is mimetic only in the sense that it attempts to enact natural processes. The difference between pictures and world is that the world is a sum total of reality, but a picture only represents a situation in logical space. Ideograms may be defined as pictures intended to represent either things or thoughts. There are two kinds of ideogram. Pictures are actual representations of objects. Pictorial symbols, which are used to suggest abstract ideas. So with that, family, it don't get no plainer. We give honors to that drawing brother Mustafa Gadala brought on the manifest. That's a whole age of enlightenment right there poured on the people. So at this time, we're gonna see if our brother Sincere have something to say. And we're gonna bring this demonstration to a closure. Islam.
And yes, praise Allah, praise Allah, praise Allah. Again, I rise, I give all praises to Allah and honors to the Prophet Noble Jur Ali, El Sharif Abdul Ali. I give honors to our Moorish American government, our officials, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and most especially our citizens. Yeah, this is a beautiful class, and that man, when I open up the treasures of Allah that you bestowed upon us, National Assistant Grand Chief for our class, I couldn't do nothing but smile, and just give thanks to the great God Allah for sending our holy and illustrious prophet. You asked us to go into this, the seven cycle of creation. If I could go back to let me go back to the email. Right quick, so I can make sure that I want to say everything right, so it could be so I can give my portion and seem good into myself that Allah bestowed upon me. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this might be it. Okay, so what I'm gonna do instead, Grandma, is I'm gonna go to the file that you sent me and then just go off of that. Um,
Islam, Brother Sincere Baby, would you like for me to read it for you? I have it right here in front of me if you want me to read it for you. Okay, I guess it didn't hear.
Islam Morris, did my phone mute out or something?
Yep.
It did. Okay, where was I at? I heard the sister say she could read the question. Um, where was? Okay, well,
We didn't hear anything. I mean, you said you was about to go to a different slide or something. I don't know.
oh wow, yeah, I was talking the whole time, so I'm not gonna be able to function like that because I guess my phone automatically mutes when I go to my files. I'll figure that out a little later on. I did hear the mobile say that she can't read it for me though. Yes, sister, you could go ahead.
Okay, Islam. The assignment was, he said, number one, say use the PDF attached as a guide for your transliteration of 7 acts of the creation cycle as instructed below. And number two, it says observe the celestial and terrestrial pages of Book of Creation and contemplate upon the meaning of 7 acts in the cycle of creation that corresponds with the acts of the Netaru of your choice. And then in parentheses, he had give your exegesis of 7 acts of occurrence. And then he also had in parentheses upon the planes of protoplasm, of earth, of plant, of beast, of man, of angel, and of cherubim, Islam. Gratitude, Dr.
Islam and much gratitude. And like I stated, well, I was doing a whole bunch of talking while I was looking for my files, but yeah, I wasn't able to obtain the files that you sent. But once I did get the assignment, and right off of the back, you on that next page where you say, can where's the nearest place to meet Allah, um, and that that's just one of the things about our holy and illustrious prophet and the teachings of our holy and illustrious prophet, and the understanding that we have to have to follow our prophet and listen to his words. He said all good Moorish leaders need to study your divine constitution and your bylaws. Um, this is one of the most essential things that a Moorish American could do, because you're not being led by any mere man. You're being led by Allah through His holy and illustrious prophet, through His teachings, and then from there, because that's the home. That's our home. We as Moorish Americans, we teach our people nationality and divine creed. that's the topic, that's the order of the day, and everything else comes from outside of that. Now, you had access to explain the seven cycles of life, as well as, and then you told us to bring forth of with the seven Elohim. Now, when you're dealing with the seven Elohim, you know the first one that is brought forth is plant, and that's for a particular reason. You're dealing with the chlorophyll, you're dealing with the substance or the water. When you go back into the ancient Kemetic teachings of Yehoshua, you know he spoke of being born again by spirit and water. You draw. Now we draw that according to all documents, that it was that spirit of H2O, of the word of four elements, what we could refer to, or the nine Aniad is another thing that we could refer to put to where we're able to understand that the creation, the creation and fall of life, or the creation of life, or the book of life, is stored in the DNA, or the divine nature of Allah. That's why it is taught that we must honor our father and our mother, that our days be long upon the earth land which the Lord our God Allah has given thee. And that the moral science is a living manifestation. We are the living manifestation. And so we are here when we bring our or rise above the carnal murky ethers of the flesh, and rise ourselves into to spiritual consciousness. We understand and is aware that human folly is just it is just it's a phase, and we must know the difference between the higher self and the lower self. He who knows well his lower self knows the things that's going to pass away, and then he who knows his higher self knows that Allah is in man. You draw. And so when you go through the set, you go from plant is the plant. We're protoplast. Protoplast is the when referring to protoplast, protoplast is the actual substance, or that neutron, that proton, or them three. It's still going to refer back to the triune Allah when you're dealing with wisdom, will, and love. Or you still, or if you speed the or slow the ethers down, then from that you'll get father, mother, mother, child. You draw. And so the being able to understand the difference between Maya, there's only two things in this world, that's truth and falsehood, and so it is taught that there's a holy ministry in depth, that the two must be disintegrated, but that being the truth and the falsehood, as well as our higher self, and knowing the difference between our higher self and our lower self. And so this is always the gnosis, is the study of the self. When you go, it's never we never look outside ourselves for and blame nothing outside ourselves. And when you're conscious of the self, when you're aware of the self, and to teach and to get an understanding about how we are to teach our people, and we are to lead by example. I think this without a doubt is exercising how how the metanetter comes from the protoplast, the plant, and then now you brought forth the beast. Okay, when we're dealing with the beast, all of these things were said to be created. We were still there. We were the ones. Allah allowed us to be able to even name the creation or name the animals when masterminds trace themselves back. And then he brought forth that man. Which those are the five that failed. So they lost their spiritual nectar because they took on the customs of the human calamities, and they draw off of everything of the cares of the world. And so this is why we have the prophet depicted himself. You draw on the one-on-ones as 1 foot on the cares of the world, or the sea, or that maritime, or that Piscean, stepping on land into the Aquarian age. You see what I'm saying? And you see that he has humanity in his arms, and that bearing that form of the goddess. because in true when you draw true science, true science knows that it takes a man and a woman to bear forth a child. And when you rise your thoughts up into infinite wisdom, you will see that you can't take a lie from yourself, because it's not in flesh to think and it's not in bones to reason. And so applying this and holding fast to the precepts of Allah that is within us, and while we go through this world, this is the everyday study. This is the everyday. We have things that we can shout about. We have things because our holy and illustrious prophet, he didn't leave a stone unturned. When it comes to us, as far as us going and doing our own research and finding out about our Moabite bloodline, finding out about our flag, finding out about the history of him and what he went through. You draw what I'm saying, to be able to even bring it forth and protect and preserve it, and still have the holy and divine laws that he brought forth, and be the message that we bring. Because what did he come? He come to uplift. He came to uplift fallen humanity. Once I know without doubt or contradiction that our prophet, he know that he know that our sisters was the sisterhood, and our sisters is the most important thing for us, as far as with our brothers. That's why he brought forth the Asiatic covenant, chapter 25, to where we make known that we have to protect the women and the children as men, as God men. All of these are the true false. You can look these up on the hieroglyphs, but you can't explain. This is what the national and I call him Tahuti with the pen. This is what our grand national assistant Grand Sheik is continuously doing on these calls tirelessly. Is giving y'all giving you all of the research for yourself, to where you can go back and research and you will know what you're talking about, because there's a difference between knowing and guessing. And so once you know, then it's a difference between knowing and being, because once you might believe is going to be lost in this is all in the divine instructions, and you can go into them you can go. This is why the importance of the divine instructions from our holy prophet, because you can go back into the book, and the prophet will show you that the things that you're going through daily, and the things all prophets have went through that. You see what I'm saying? People didn't accept them, all type of demonstrations. They was ridiculed because they went into the people who were sick when they are natural healers. All of these even when you go through the 4 seasons and them being able to understand when it was time for the harvest, and other people wasn't able to understand it at that time. I just give praises to Allah and honors to our prophet, for you, National Assistant Grand Sheik, because you have set up a platform that gives them all 4 ways of learning Muslim. You know what I'm saying? That we have now. It was a time when we were just operating off of the conference call. Oh, now we visual. You draw what I'm saying? So I just, it is truly an honor to be amongst the Moorish American government and its hordes, and be a citizen, a rightful citizen, and understand the importance of what we are demonstrating, and the necessity to not think about nothing else but nationality and divine creed. Gratitude for allowing me to speak. Peace.
Yes, sir. And gratitude, brother. Gratitude. Hold up.
I can hear you, Muslim. I can still hear you. Yep, we can still hear you. Yep, you good.
There we go. Islam. Gratitude, brother.
Man, much gratitude, Muslim. Islam.
Islam. All right. Islam for the measure. And we got a measure up here. Our family ATOM 161 asked the question, good afternoon, my brother. Are these lessons available for downloading or book purchasing? And if you go to my page, Comedian ADEPT Hierophant, you'll see that we have all of this stuff uploaded. This is actually the first time we ever came live dealing with our classes. But you can find them there, family, if you look forward to taking a look at them. And as we close out, I want to show our family something to pay close attention to. And this is just a measure dealing with what we have Moorish pride in. And let me see here, right here. We brought this forth to our Moorish kin a few moons ago to give them a grand drawing of the reality that our flag is a real thing. And I spoke on this earlier, when I spoke on the confession, the Big Dipper, and the Polarises and so forth and so on. But if you notice here, it states the gate of God, which is dealing with Kafesh. This is the constellation of Musketi, or the great bull. And you see here is the leg of the ox above the star with the Netaru sitting there. It's hard to see a little bit here, but you have Meru, Mera, Mesura, Mizr, and Mazaru, Mitzer, and Misraim. All of these words connected with each other. Meru represents Mount Meru. Mera is actually one of the names of Tamare, Tamari, really the name for ancient Egypt. Mesura are the sons, of Ra, the daughters of Ra as well. We can go into the essence of that, the Mesu. Misr is actually the Arabic way of saying it. Mazaro is actually speaking of the constellations in the book of John. It asks who is able to place Mazaro, the stars that are within the heavens and the earth. And this is what a concept of as it is above, so it is below is demonstrated. In fact, there are a lot of scientific proofs in that book of Job. That's the same measure where, that lower self was asked, where you going, Satan? But anyway, Mitzvah and Mitzrayim also goes and equates to Egypt. So Kemet above is here. You see, Kemet above is here. And this is the gateway of the God. This is the birth chamber, so to speak. It is said that this is called the mouth of God as well. So everything came into existence. We are people who come from the celestial realms. You can call it the celestial Nile if you want to call it that. But what you see here is the reality of our Moorish flag and that scimitar, the Big Dipper, rotating, as it does. You see, this is in reference to a celestial ship in the north, so to speak. But when we go here, I actually have a bigger breakdown of this. You can see all that science in the same scimitar, representing the great God, Allah, swift angels, and prophets. And when it talks about us being protected by the cherubim and the spirit of the mighty God, Allah, and the solar stations and the stars and so forth and so on, this is a living expression of what Prophet Noble Drew Ali spoke of in chapter 1. We identify with exactly what it is, where it is represented, and we see how this transcends metaphysically any alphabet that you can come on to manifest to try to express, as opposed to what we just gave you. We see Tehudi and Ma'at and everything up in here, our flag. And even when I broke this down mathematically, because I actually have the chart here. In this chart mathematically, family, and I had no idea that it would come to that particular conclusion, but nevertheless it did. I'm going to see if I can pull it up here so you can see it with clarity. Because I know I have it up here. Let me scroll through here real quick and see if it's up here. It should be in our documents. I got so many things in here. Now I got to clean my little computer up too. I got so much up here. Let's see. There was a measure up here one time in the beginning of the page. Not that one there. Not that one there. Not that one there. Let me scroll it down here a little bit more. Not that one there. Okay. A little bit more. Trying to blow this demonstration up for the Moorish kin. But I actually seen one here I can give to our family that express the same measure here. Right here. This will work right here. And if you pay attention, this is talking about the Kafesh. We just seen how it's represented above. It says the course of history, the Egyptian language, Kafesh. Then it goes into, they say, which is a hieroglyphic writing. It says use of the word in the pyramid, and it's really talking about the thing, not an actual alphabet that we point out. We talking about this foreleg of the bull. It said came to mean not only the constellation of the great bear, but also strong arm, strength, even scimitar. So, when we talk about the strength of Allah, and man exercising that strength, or being the strength of Allah made manifest as a result of dealing with thought, that's the consciousness, that's the scimitar that's used. We say the arm of Allah has not been weakened. In other words, we saying justice, is going to take its course, basically. That's that scimitar rotating. But nevertheless, it even said down here, if you go into it, I hate when it do that. Let me get back to it. Right here, trying to blow that up a little bit. Notice here that Al-Sar has the Kafesh on the table, the leg of the ox. We didn't just make this stuff up. Look, foreleg of an animal, shoulder, arms of a man, Kafesh, strength, power, valor, lords of strength, Kafesh, sword, scimitar, any weapon, Kafesh. So we have showed you scientifically where this leg of the ox is represented in the heavens. We have showed you how this is synonymous with our flag and everything that was demonstrated. And this is how you really demonstrate Medu. So out of all of this, I was able to get a multitude of science, and even the numbers check out well. And when I went and dealt with the numbers, this was just seeing how the number 7, if I multiplied it, and deal with addition and so forth and so on, how that number 7 would deal with the abjad alphabet. And I came up every time, it's kind of blurry here, with KHTY. When I did the numbers all the way down here, which is the root of the word musketi that I spoke of earlier. You see? Let's see it here. But anyway, that's the grand drawing, family. So we just want to say gratitude to our family and represent your government, because our teachings can be seen everywhere. Not only have we proven now the SEBAYT teachings of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, how he instructed the Moors in Medu, but we have also showed you how our ensigns are mentioned way back during the times of ancient Kemet. Who else can do that when it comes to their teachings? How many other people have given you a teaching where you can actually show these things in real time? We hear people talk religiously about a lot of things, but in most cases, we have to believe in those things based upon, just having faith. But when it comes to our teaching, not only do we go beyond faith to be what we know, but we can actually see everything as a living manifestation and personification of everything our prophet brought and everything he taught. We can prove it. We can definitively state that we can prove what Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought us to be truth in reality. You see? And so that's where we at this particular time. And so we see the science, we see everything it is that has been brought to us by our holy prophet through his SEBAYT teachings, his wisdom teachings. That's what that means. He is the one who told the Moors to go within when it comes to knowing the self and being able to observe and read this Medu. So we want to say gratitude to our Moorish kin. It's been a grand class. We got a mighty task ahead of us, and this mighty task will most definitely be now going in the direction of trying to compile these works, and bring the language forth, also reconstruction of our mother tongue, so to speak, based upon that which had become lost to the people in the West. We have the knowledge now. We are fortified. This is the last lesson in the series of dealing with these droids, but we always bring these measures back in reiteration throughout our lessons that we demonstrate in the future. But as far as dealing with the language, we have it now documented so our people can go right back and listen to these things, study these things. And if they want to be what they know, as opposed to what they told, we have a multitude of lessons right now coming out of our Department of Education under the Moorish American government, where they can go and find these things. So the duty is to teach our people to be themselves, but it's on our people. Because at this level, we talking about the degree of professor. When you say Professor Drew, professor in the aspect is different from a regular teacher. Because the teacher gonna give you one, they gonna guide you all, hold your hand the whole way. Nothing wrong with that. But when you deal with the professor degree, the professor gonna put that measure out there and say, all right, now it's time for you to be what you know. It's time for you to go do the research. That's what our chairman did with the Book of Fire. He gave us the truth, and he didn't tell us to go around and just parrot him without doing our own research. You got to do your research. You got to be what you know. Because if you don't do that, you're gonna find yourself in some bad situations out here. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? Study, study, study. There's never a time where we shouldn't be studying. So what the prophet said, if you were to ask him what to study, he's gonna say yourself. And if you ask him again, he's gonna say yourself. So we got a lot of measures to bring to the manifest, dictionaries, books, and everything dealing with these subject matters, and we ready. So gratitude, Moors. Peace and love and law at all costs. And now we're going to turn this demonstration over to Sister Dendra, Ani, Kurtabay, Islam. And, we're going to take us out with a Moorish vibration, Islam.
Islam. Can you hear me, Godman?
Oh, loud and clear with divine ears. This has been a grand class, Goddess. Go ahead.
Islam. January 15, 1929. A warning from the prophet to be read at every meeting. I hereby inform all citizens that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways, by the order of Prophet Noble Jew Ali. A holy covenant of the Asiatic nations. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother hath given you suck. Let the bonds of affection, therefore, unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thy own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. Islam, Islam, Islam. This meeting is officially adjourned according to Act 2. Go in peace, Moors. Wonderful class. Wonderful class.
Peace and love to all the Moors online. Where there's unity, there's strength. United we stand, divided we fall. Love you, Moors. Love you,
Islam.
Grand Chief. Love you, Chairman. Love you, Moorish America. Yes, sir.
Great class, Dr. Shahi. Gratitude.
Demonstration to Hootie with the
Praise Allah.
pen.
Praise
Islam.
God.
Islam.
Powerful measure.
We
Yes,
love
brother.
you,
Great
Moors.
class. Great
Yeah,
class.
yeah.
Gratitude.
Great,
Yes,
great
Peace
class.
and love, Morris
Just
Ken.
like us, we say.
We love
Islam.
Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Gratitude,
Love
Very
y'all.
powerful
Did it
mission.
again, National Assistant Grand Sheik.
Yes, sir. We love you, family.
Islam.
Praise be to Allah.
Islam.
Islam. All
Hey,
right now. Yeah, we're gonna take our family out with a good raw Moorish vibration, as we always do. So mute your mics more so we don't get no feedback, and gratitude. We love you. And you already know we getting ready for Sunday school. We ain't going nowhere. Islam. Let me go ahead and share this demonstration to our family. All right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, where you at? Okay. Is that it right there? Yeah. I don't need no drink, no smoke to regulate me, and my highs are low. Just good vibes, good vibes. My wave is natural stimulation, so I'm elated in elevation. Good vibes, good vibes. I don't need no drink, no smoke to regulate me, and my highs are low. Just good vibes, good vibes. My wave is natural stimulation, so I'm elated in elevation. Good vibes, good vibes. When I recollect, I'm the epitome of bliss, cause I'm still breathing with no stress, and it ain't all about a bag, but I'm good with a check, invested all in the family, then it's on to the next. But every now and then I like to slide through my city. You only live once, YOLO, and I get it. This world will chew you up and spew you out, but no pity. Corporate crooks running cons, undermining my business. I can never take a L when the Lord's my witness. I stay prayed up, but keep that scimitar with me. I was taught to put security on everything I love. Drugs appreciate, so I depend on the plug. I'm meditating on the profits and not the profits. Cause when I leave here, I leave the shells in the profit. My estate is the native plane of my ancestors. I'm indigenous to the land and the spacious as ever. And when I'm burdened, it's easy for me to get away. I got a line of divinity I can vouchsafe and leave the cares of the world all in good faith. With no drama, good vibes, that's a good day. I don't need no drink, no smoke to regulate me. My highs are low, just good vibes, good vibes. My wave is natural stimulation, so I'm elated in elevation. Good vibes, good vibes. I don't need no drink, no smoke to regulate me, and my eyes are low, just good vibes, good vibes. My wave is natural stimulation, so I'm elated in elevation. Good vibes, good vibes. Islam, Islam, Islam. We love you, Lord.
Gratitude, God, man. I like that tune. Islam.
Yeah, I try to do a little singing. Y'all don't pick at me.
You got me over here bouncing. At my age, I'm over here just bouncing.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
We love you, family.
We love you, family. Islam.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.